Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jessica McDonald. I'm a knitting pattern designer and I'm coming to you from a tiny town in the mountains of Idaho. Today I have a little bit of a different kind of video for you. Instead of showing you what I'm currently knitting on, I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 favorite colorwork sweaters. They're all stacked up here. I'm going to go through each sweater, tell you about the design, and tell you exactly why I love it so much. These are all ones that I wear all of the time, and they are definitely my 5 most worn sweaters in my wardrobe, so I thought I would share with you why I love them all so much. Before we get into the sweaters, let me share with you what I am wearing. This is my Silverlake Shawl. It's knit in North Bay Fiber Co Heritage DK, which is a fantastic yarn, by the way. It is mostly garter stitch. It's a triangular shawl knit from the top down, and then it's mostly garter stitch, and then you come down to the very bottom and you have this really pretty undulating lace border that you can see here. I pinned out the bottom of each little scallop so that it's defined the bottom of them. And I'm wearing it over top of a can dress from Not Perfect Linen. It's in their heavyweight linen in the color khaki. This dress was gifted to me by Not Perfect Linen, but I love their clothes and I wear it all the time. One of the main reasons why I love Not Perfect Linen is that I am able to modify it. So I'm very tall, so I added length to the bodice of this dress so that it actually fits me in the waist. And I also added length to the sleeves, but then I rolled them up. I like to roll up sleeves on, like if I have long sleeves on my dresses or my shirts, I like to roll them up so that I can wash something without my sleeves getting all wet. I will put a link to this dress in the description box down below as well. So let's get into the sweaters. First of all, before we begin, if you are not signed up to my email newsletter and you like any of these patterns, you can sign up for my email newsletter and get a discount code for 20% off of your first purchase. The link to sign up for my email newsletter is in the description box below. But first, we are going to start with Ruska. You might be able to hear my dishwasher in the background. I don't know if you can or you can't. I'm going to turn it off real quick. My favorite sweater of all of my sweaters is Ruska. This sweater is the one that I have worn the most out of all of the sweaters in my wardrobe. One of the reasons why I really love wearing this is because it was the most fun out of every single knit that I've ever done. It uses 3 colors. You have Shetland motifs and you won't use 3 colors, but you only ever knit with 2 colors in any given round. And the motifs are constantly changing. There's no repeat of any motif anywhere. So you're constantly moving through different motifs and you're only ever knitting with 2 colors. So you have the most fun you can ever have with color work. You just want to knit another round and another round and another round. You want to see how the color work comes out. You want to see how it looks. You cannot resist just knitting the next round and seeing how it looks after the next round. It was, I am not kidding, it was the most fun sweater I have ever knit. I really loved it. Plus you have the color work that goes down onto the sleeves. So you separate for the sleeves and then you knit some more color work on the sleeve and on the body, which means that you don't have a lot of body and sleeve to knit after the color work is done. So you really maximize your color work fun and you don't have a lot of just stockinette doldrums that you have to work through to get this sweater done. So most of this sweater is just super duper fun to knit. I also really like this big star that runs across the bottom of the yoke. It's a really nice feature point in this yoke and I really think it makes this yoke stand out a lot and I think it makes it look really good. Another reason I really love this sweater is because of the yarn. This sweater uses Barrett Wool Co Wisconsin Woolen Spun in the worsted weight version. There's a worsted weight and a fingering weight version. This one uses the worsted weight version. It is an amazing yarn. I'm going to show you this sleeve. My dog is now making noise. Here is the sleeve. Look at this. I have never depilled this sleeve. You see that there's not a single pill. If you look at it this way, you can see a few pills sticking up on the top. Right here, there's one. I have never de-pilled this sweater. It has never needed de-pilling. It just looks amazing. The yarn looks amazing. It doesn't really show wear or tear. The ribbing still looks amazing. The ribbing is one area where a sweater can start to look old quickly, but look, the ribbing still looks nice and crisp. It's still in great shape. The bind off still looks really good. It's still in really good shape. This is an old sweater that has gone through literally hundreds of wears, and it still looks amazing because the yarn is amazing. Not only that, but this yarn is not harsh on your skin. It's not like most yarns that wear really well are really rustic. They're kind of harsh on your skin. They're kind of crunchy and scratchy. But Wisconsin Woolen Spun is extremely soft. It's really soft. It's really lofty, and it just wears really, really well. I'm going to show you the fabric here. You can see how good it still looks even after being worn literally hundreds of times. The colors haven't run at all. All of the colors are still crisp. You can see that the yarns haven't bled at all, even with all of the washing that it's gone through. It just looks amazing even after so many years and so many times being worn and so many times being washed. It's just a fantastic sweater. This is an amazing yarn, and I've used it a few times, and it has always turned out really, really good. And I even used it for the sleepy kittens I made for my children recently for Christmas. I'm going to show you those in the next video though. It's just a really great yarn. The only downside to this yarn is it's sold out all of the time. So you kind of have to watch. You have to sign up for the Barrett Wool Co newsletter, and you have to be really on the ball and buy it when you see it available, because it is often sold out because it's only made in small batches. But it's a really fantastic yarn. Really fantastic yarn. It's a really fantastic sweater. I loved knitting it so much. I really, really love this sweater. And it looks fantastic. I've worn it over dresses. I've worn it with jeans. Mostly I wear it with jeans. But another reason why I wear it so much is it's made out of worsted weight yarn, and that is my favorite yarn weight. So this is my favorite, my absolute favorite sweater, Ruska. Now I'm going to share with you my next favorite sweater, which is Snowy Pines. My favorite colors are green and gray, so putting them together in a sweater was just magical for me. So this is Snowy Pines. It was released last year. It is included in my book Forest. I'll put a link to this book down below. It's also available as an individual pattern if you don't want to buy the book. Here's some really pretty pictures. My husband took these pictures. He's my photographer. He's turning out to be a really, really amazing photographer. So I'll put a link to this book in the description box below if you would like to purchase it. If you are not on my email newsletter, you can also use the 20% new subscriber discount to buy my books too. So here's Snowy Pines. Just a normal colorwork yoke sweater. Start from the neck, work your way down. This one has a folded neckline, which I really like. My only regret on this sweater is that I didn't make this neckline at least 50% deeper, or possibly twice as deep. I think that if it had a deeper folded neckline, I would be happier with it. But I'm not going to go back and change it now. To change a neckline on a top-down sweater is an absolute monster. I'm not going to do it. So here is the yoke up close. It has pine trees with snow falling on them, and then once you get down below the pine trees, you have some graphic motifs down here in this section here. I really love this sweater because it is worsted weight, which is my favorite weight. The yarn is really nice, but it's not as nice as the Wisconsin Woolen Spun. This is the Rerum Natura Gilliat. The colors are Farit, Goland, and I can't remember what the white is called. The problem with this yarn, it's really soft. It's another woolen spun yarn, which I love. But the problem with this one is that it's showing a bit of wear. You can see the pills there. It's wearing a bit. It could use a de-pilling. you can see, let me show you the ribbing. The ribbing is not as crisp as it was when it was first made. It's starting to kind of smush and stretch out and stay flat. One thing that really annoys me is when the cuffs on a sweater kind of get blown out and the ribbing on the cuffs doesn't return to where it originally was. And that's happened with this sweater, as the cuffs are just all stretched out, which has not happened with Ruska. I'll put them side by side so you can compare. So you can see the green cuff, the ribbing is all stretched out, but here it's still sprung back in how it's supposed to. I like it when the cuffs come back to where they're supposed to be. But in a woolen spun yarn, that can be kind of hard once you start wearing it quite a bit. So there's the cuff. There's some pilling on the sleeve here. It could use a good shading. The pills don't bother me too much if I'm wearing it at home. If I do wear it out and about and go to town in it, I will clean it up before I go if it's really pilled, but when I'm at home, the pills don't really bother me. This sweater was the first sweater where I put the short rows underneath the colorwork yoke. This is the back of the sweater. I really like how I made that change and put the short rows down here underneath the yoke as opposed to up here around right under the neckline. I like that there's not a wedge of main color before you get into the yoke, but you still have the excellent fit thanks to the short rows. The thing I love most about this sweater is honestly the color and the colorwork motif. I really, really love this yoke. It's beautiful. It's just perfect for me. It's just my style. It's just my thing, and I adore it. Another thing, here's a little tip for your sweaters. Take a little piece of yarn and just put it in the back, right? This is just at the base of the ribbing. Just a little piece of yarn. It's basically just a little tag so that it's easy to tell where's the front and where's the back. That doesn't matter if you don't have short rows shaping the neckline, but if you have short rows shaping the neckline, you do need to put that in there. Well, you don't need to, but it makes it a lot easier to tell what is the front and the back. So my favorite thing about this sweater is the motif and the colors. I absolutely love. It's also really nice and warm and cozy. Rerum Natura Gilliat was a really fantastic yarn to knit with, and I really enjoyed using it. But I have found that Ulisse, which is the sport weight version, wears better than Gilliat, which is the worsted weight version. Sweater number 3. This is a really old sweater as well. This is Blizzard. Blizzard is knit in Bare Naked Wool's Better Breakfast DK, and I'm going to tell you more about the yarn in just a minute, but the yarn is a big reason why I constantly wear this sweater. This sweater was designed intentionally for people who have not knit colorwork before and who want to knit a stunning colorwork yoke without it being very difficult for you to knit. So all of the motifs are kept short. You have very easily memorized repeats. You don't have any floats longer than 3 stitches, and you don't have any repeats longer than 4 stitches. So it's really easy to memorize. You have like 3 brown, 1 white, 3 brown, 1 white, 3 brown, 1 white, or 2 white, 2 brown, 2 white, 2 brown. So very, very easily memorized repeats and very, very short floats so that you can easily knit yourself a stunning colorwork yoke sweater without it being too difficult for you. This was also the sweater that I used to demonstrate techniques in my how to knit colorwork video. So if you've never knit colorwork before, I'll put a link in the description box below to my how to knit colorwork video. And this is a really fantastic option for your first colorwork project. This is Better Breakfast DK from Bare Naked Wools. This is an amazing, amazing yarn. I cannot remember the exact blend of fibers that it is, but you can see it's really silky, it's really soft, and it wears really, really well. This is another sweater that I have never de-pilled. There are some pills here on the sleeve. Move my face, you can see some pills here on the sleeve, but mostly the fabric is still really amazing. It doesn't show a lot of wear. The elbows are getting a little bit thin, and I think that before next winter I might reinforce them, but they're not too bad. Here's an elbow. You can see it's a little bit stretched out there where the elbow sits, but it doesn't look thin. I don't have the start of a hole yet. It's holding up extremely well to heavy duty wear. Here's the cuffs. You can see the ribbing still looks pretty good. It's starting to get a little bit blown out, and the end of the cuff is starting to flare a bit, but it's still really, really great condition. It is just a really, really nice yarn. It may sound like one of the reasons that makes a sweater my favorite sweater is the yarn, and it really is true. Using a really nice yarn is really important when you're knitting a sweater to make it last forever and make it one of your favorite sweaters. It's something that can't be overlooked, is yarn choice. So this sweater I really love. I really love that it's neutral on neutral. So Bare Naked Wools does not dye. It's just all natural fleece color yarn. So this is a natural color and this is a natural color as well. I really like the brown on white, neutral on neutral color scheme. I really like the yoke. It's really pretty. It's really, it stands out really well, and it looks really good in this high contrast dark brown white contrast color combination. It's really pretty. It fits really nice. It hasn't stretched out. The neckline hasn't stretched out at all, so it sits really nicely still. It fits really nicely still. The yarn looks really nice. So this is another one of my favorite sweaters, which is Blizzard. The next one that is my favorite is my Fletching. This one would also be a fantastic option for your first colorwork sweater because the colorwork repeats are just exactly the same everywhere. They're just shifted over by one spot to make the little fletching. It's supposed to look like the fletching on an arrow. That was my inspiration. The things I love about this sweater, I like the bold graphic color work. I like the strong lines around the yoke. I like that it's the same thing over and over again. I like that bold dramatic effect of it. I like how it looks. I like the colors. I really, really like the colors. This kind of harvest gold color paired with the light colored main color is really pretty. I like that contrast. The yarn is also really nice. This is Barrett Wool Co Woolens. It's their sport weight woolen spun yarn. This one is not as old as the other ones. The yarn is wearing really nicely so far, but I don't have quite the report I have on the other, like Blizzard and Ruska, because this sweater isn't as old. I released this one last January, so this one's about a year old now. I really, really like this yoke. I really like it. It's just kind of understated and bold and beautiful. It looks good with a dark contrast color on a light main color, or flip-flop with a dark main color and a light contrast color. I think what I might do this coming year is design a worsted weight version of this sweater. You can let me know down in the comments if you like that idea or not. But this one is just really beautiful. It looks really elegant. It looks really classic. It looks a little bit Nordic and cool. I just really love how it looks. And here's another situation where I just took a little bit of the contrast color and I made a little tag in the back neck for myself so that I can see easily where what's the front and the back. This is another sweater where I put the short rows down underneath the yoke so that you don't have a wedge of main color up here before you start into the color work, which I really love. I think that looks really professional and elegant. I really like this sweater. It's very warm. The yarn is extremely warm. It's not extremely soft. There is a little bit of scratchiness to it, so if you're really sensitive, you might not like this yarn, but if you're used to wearing more rustic yarns, you'll probably think it's soft. One downside to this yarn is the contrast color is starting to bleed into the main color, and that's one thing that I don't really like. You can kind of see it on the wrong side of the fabric, and the back of the neckline here, it's starting to look kind of yellowish. And inside of the motifs, it's starting to look a little bit, the colors aren't as crisp anymore. It's starting to get a little bit yellowed out. Here's a spot where it shows up really well. I'm wondering, I just recently washed it, so maybe I left it to soak too long. I didn't leave it all that long though. So it's starting to bleed, which is disappointing. Perhaps next time I wash it, I'll put one of those color catcher sheets in with it. Maybe this might be a yarn that I have to be extra careful with the bleeding on. I knit a baby version of this sweater, a baby/child version of this sweater in this exact same yarn, and I used a dark green contrast color, and it did bleed a lot. Part of that is because it was washed a lot because it was a baby sweater. So this might be a yarn that you just have to expect a little bit of bleeding on, and wash it in cold water. Don't let it soak for very long, and maybe throw a color catcher sheet in with the soak while you're washing this yarn. I don't know what it is. It must be dyed by someone else. So these are both Barrett Wool Co yarns. This is Wisconsin Woolen spun in the worsted weight, and this is Woolens, which is a sport weight yarn. I think they are milled and dyed by two different people for Barrett Wool Co. The Wisconsin Woolen spun doesn't bleed at all. There's no bleeding. Even this dark charcoal gray color doesn't bleed. None of it bleeds. All of the colors are still perfectly crisp, even though this has been washed a million times. But the Woolens, for some reason, bleeds. I don't know who dyes the Woolens for Susan, but this one bleeds a bit. So be mindful of that. Use cold water. Don't let it soak very long. Use a color catcher. I had washed it a number of times without it bleeding, but it's just this last time that I washed it that it bled. So next time I wash it, I'll do something a little bit different with it. Or maybe I just won't wash it again. Just kidding. I don't wash my sweaters very often, but I do have a million children, so I do have to wash them a few times a year. Wool sweaters don't have to be washed after every wear. You can wash them once a year if you want to, or you can just put them on a schedule of like once a month or something. The next sweater, I really, really love the design. I love the motif. I really enjoyed knitting it. I really enjoyed wearing it when it was new, but I am very disappointed in the yarn. So this yarn is very popular right now, and I tried it and I'm disappointed in it. So this is Winter Woods. This is an absolutely stunning yoke. I love this yoke. I have seen a million versions of this sweater in a million different yarns, and every single one looks amazing. No matter the yarn choice, whether you use a more expensive yarn or a budget-friendly yarn, it looks amazing in all of them. It looks fantastic. Even now, just holding it up, you can see how beautiful it is. I love this giant star, and then I love the smaller motifs that frame it. It's just a stunning sweater, absolutely stunning. The reason why it's number 5 on my pile instead of number 1 is that I am not pleased with the yarn that I used for it. So this is another colorwork yoke, knit top down in the round. This one has a little tiny bit of colorwork that goes down below the sleeve divide. So there's just a little tiny bit down here on the sleeves and on the body, just a little bit down below the sleeve divide. And it's really short motifs down there, just a little gentle blending of the color work down into the body is basically what I think of it as. But I love that you end with this giant star at the bottom, or snowflake at the bottom of the yoke, and then you have this down below, kind of, instead of abruptly cutting off here, you kind of fade down into the body, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is stunning. It's gorgeous and I love it, but the yarn has not worked out well for me. First of all, let's talk about the sleeves. If they look a little bit short, it's because they are. Well, let me tell you the yarn I used first. This is an unspun yarn. This is Wool Dreamers Manchelopi specifically, but I think that this would be true of every single unspun yarn, including Plutolopi and whatever other unspun yarn is out there. When this sweater was done, it was really lightweight, it was really lofty, it's extremely warm to wear, but you need to remember that I wear sweaters every single day, literally every single day. Even in the summertime, I live at a very high elevation. It's like 5,600 feet above sea level here. I live up in the mountains. Even in the summertime, it's still only 50 degrees in the morning. So I generally wear a sweater for a few hours in the morning after I first get up before I start running around in my shorts and my t-shirt. So I wear sweaters all of the time. All of my sweaters get extremely heavy wear, and I may be unusual in that aspect that I wear them constantly. Maybe other people don't wear their sweaters as often, or they keep some sweaters for nice and just wear them, a couple times a month and don't wear them as much. But my sweaters get extremely heavy wear. This sweater is absolutely no exception. When it was first done, I think I released this in February of this year. It was last winter sometime. When it was first done, it was amazing. It was lightweight, it was warm, it was cozy, and it still is those things. But now, it is also a 3/4 length sleeve. This isn't sitting right, but it sits on my arm right about here, which I fold up the sleeves on my dress because I don't want my dress to get wet, but I do want my sweater sleeves to come all the way down to my wrist. When I first knitted this sweater and it was first done, these sleeves came down to my wrist, but over time they have shrunk by about 3 inches. And I think what is happening is that the unspun yarn has no structure to it. So I think that it's just felting, and as it felts inside the sleeve is losing length as all of those fibers kind of, how it shrinks when it felts. Everything shrinks when it felts. So I think it's just shrinking lengthwise instead of widthwise. So it hasn't shrunk widthwise at all. It's just shrinking lengthwise by a significant amount. And it's kind of annoying to wear it now because the sleeve is way too short, and I just find it kind of obnoxious. If this was a normal yarn, I could just unpick the bind off, rip out the sleeve, knit 3 more inches, re-knit the cuff, bind off, and I'd be fine. But this is unspun yarn. You can look at the cuff. There's no unpicking this. There's no ripping this out. I would have to cut it off. I would have to cut off the cuff and then hope that the stitches here around the base of the cuff were still in decent shape and weren't felted to the point where I couldn't pick them up and then knit. But then the fabric for the new section would look dramatically different than the fabric in the rest of the sleeve, and it just would be funky. So I am just annoyed when I wear it. There's no good way to fix it in a way that it wouldn't be a pain to fix. Like, it would just be an absolute pain to fix this. And not only that, but it would be a very, very obvious fix. You can see that the elbow has bubbled out. Maybe you can't see that the elbow has bubbled out. Maybe I've been messing with that sleeve too much. You can see the elbow is a bubble there in the middle. The ribbing is all stretched out. There is no memory in this yarn at all. There's no memory in this ribbing. The first time it got stretched out, it just stayed stretched out. It doesn't spring back to how it's supposed to be. And the exact same thing is happening with the neckline. It has a funnel neck on here. And it was really nice when it was first made because it fit nice and high and it came up my neck and it kept it cozy, but it wasn't like tight against my neck and it wasn't constricting, which I find annoying, but it was just like this cozy little hug around my neck. But now the ribbing has all blown out in the neckline. It's stretched out. It won't go back to its original state. So the neckline itself is kind of stretched out and the sweater is slouching a little bit lower because of that. I think also that the lack of structure in the unspun yarn has made the whole top of the yoke start to stretch out too. I think there's just not enough structure in the yarn to give it strength for a top-down sweater. So if you're going to knit with unspun yarn, I think that I would recommend you stick to accessories, or maybe a seamed sweater might have more structure in it. But given the performance of this sweater's fabric, I don't intend to knit with unspun yarn again. It does look really pretty in color work. You can see that it looks absolutely stunning in the color work. It looks beautiful. I just really wish this yarn wore better. If this yarn stayed in good condition for longer, then this would be my favorite sweater, hands down. But thanks to some issues with the wearing of the sweater and the wearing of the yarn, this one is ranked quite a bit further down. If I had to knit this all over again, which I might knit this all over again because I love the design so much, I would knit this in a woolen spun wool yarn, and I think that would be fantastic in a woolen spun yarn. I've seen so many sweaters like this. If you go on Instagram and you just look at the Winterwoods hashtag, you will see sweater after sweater that every single one of them is stunning and gorgeous. This is one pattern of mine that it just looks amazing. No matter who knits it, no matter what yarn they knit it out of, it just looks amazing for everyone. And so I'm really pleased with the design itself. And I love this yoke. I love this giant snowflake. I really love it, but I'm disappointed in the yarn. And that's why this sweater is number 5. So there is my top 5 favorite colorwork sweaters. These are all the adult sweaters. I do actually have a lot of kids sweaters as well. There's a kid version of Ruska, which is called Little Ruska. There's a kid version of my Fletching, which is called Fletching. I did the kid version first and then the adult version. There's also a kid version of Blizzard, and it's called Skift. And there is a kid version of Snowy Pines. So the kid version of Snowy Pines is called Ponderosa. I say it's the kid version, but they're more like aunt and niece versus mother and daughter. They're a little, the motifs are a bit different, but they are related. There is no kid version of Winterwoods because this snowflake is too big to grade down to a child's size. So there's my top 5 favorite colorwork sweaters. If you like one of those patterns, I will put the links to all of them in the description box down below. And remember to sign up for my email newsletter to get a 20% discount code if you want to buy one of these patterns. Please like this video so that YouTube will show it to more people, and subscribe to my channel so you see my future videos. I'm going to be back again next week with a normal podcast video, and I will show you the sleepy kittens. I barely got done in time for Christmas. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week and happy knitting. Bye.